Non-static only. It's non-static only. And if we want a member to be static, we need to prefix static keyword before it. For example, class test. Int x is equals to 100. Static or non-static? Non-static. Did you understand how to declare a member as static now? That's how you declare a member as static. You're required to prefix the static. Otherwise, every member is, till now, all the members we defined in our classes since we started with object-oriented programming are non-static only. Except main. Except main. To make main static, we are writing static keyword before it or not? Static void main. So, static is what I require to prefix to make it static. Otherwise, everything is non-static. Okay, next. Okay. What is the difference between static and non-static members? Same. Non-static or instance members require instance of the class for initialization and execution also. Whereas static members of a class doesn't require instance of the class for initialization as well as for execution. Okay, so read that carefully, guys. Non-static or instance members require what? Instance of the class for initialization as well as for execution. Recollect yourself here 4 days or 5 days back I said you. If you want to call the members of a class, you require to create methods of a class, you require to create instance of the class if they are non-static. I already clarified you. Without instance creation. Yesterday also I said you, when you create the instance only the memory is allocated for X. Until the instance is created, memory will not be allocated. Memory allocation is completely associated with instance creation. When in case of or did you understand why are you calling instance members? Because they are tightly coupled with the instance. They are tightly coupled with the instance, and that's the reason why you call them as instance members. What do they require? Instance of the class for initialization as well as for execution. Whereas static members of class doesn't require instance of class for initialization as well as for execution also. Static members doesn't require. Example, main method directly called. Whereas doesn't have space here. Whereas is a single word. Whereas doesn't have space first. Okay? Yeah. Are you guys clear? Understood my point? Okay? So that's what? Non-static or static, that is the difference. Simple, guys. If you are associated with an instance, then we call them as non-static or instance member. Not associated with the instance, then we call it as static member. Are you guys clear with the difference between static and non-static first? I'll do one thing. We completed 3 members now. Let's differentiate between each one. What each one? I will explain you first the difference between versus. Second, we'll talk about are you clear? We'll talk about each point individually. First, we'll start with non-static fields and static fields. Non-static fields and static fields. Guys, first thing what we require to understand here is what fields are static and what fields are non-static? We're telling non-static fields and static fields. What fields are static and what fields are non-static? Just now I said every field is by default non-static only. If you want to make it static, you require to prefix the static keyword before it. That's all. That is the answer. What fields are static and what fields are non-static? By default, every field is non-static. And if you want to make it static, you require to prefix static. By prefixing static, you are making it as static. Otherwise, everything is non-static by default. Hope you guys are clear. Yes or not? Okay. So public, class test. Already on the top I showed you. One more time I am showing you. Int x is equals to 100. Int y is equals to 200. Now both are non-static. Both are non-static. But if I want anything to be static, what should I do? Static. So x is non-static and y is static. Not only this, guys, all of you listen to this. Static void main. Here I am writing int z is equals to 300. Okay? Guys, listen. This is non-static. This is static. Also static. Understood or not? X is non-static. Y is static. Z is also static. Z is also going to be static in this case. I hope you guys are clear. A variable declared in a static block is also static only. A variable declared in a static block is also static. So Z is also static here. X is non-static, Y is static, and Z is again static. Z is again static. Okay. So come to your code. I am defining a class here. We'll name the class as fields. Fields. Fields is the name of the class what I am defining. Yeah. I declared one non-static field. I declared one static field. Okay. Now, the second difference I want to tell you is, first difference is declaration. By default, everything is non-static only. If it's static, it will become static. Second point. When static fields are initialized and when non-static fields are initialized. So what is the second point I'm telling you? When static fields are initialized and when non-static fields are initialized. Any guess when static fields are initialized? Otherwise, when non-static fields are initialized. Yesterday I said to you, when non-static fields are initialized. Yesterday only I said to you, when you create the instance of the class, non-static means what? Instance member. When is it initialized? When you create the instance of the class. It is initialized when you create the instance of the class. Now the question is, when static fields are initialized only. The question is when static fields are initialized only. Okay, non-static yesterday given explanation for you already. So now listen guys, when static fields are initialized. Static fields are initialized immediately once the execution of a class starts. When the execution of a class starts, execution starts from main method, right? The point the execution starts with main method, static fields are initialized immediately. The point the execution starts with the main method, static fields are initialized implicitly, immediately. That is why guys see, on the top here, I am writing console.writeline y, and see it will print you the y value. When can it print the y value here? If it is initialized only, it can print the y value now. So it is initialized and printing you the y value. But guys, watch it. Can I print the x value like this? You will get error. You cannot print the x value. You get error. Why sir? Array, non-static fields are initialized only after instance creation. You did not create an instance. Until and unless you create an instance, X won't be initialized. But once the execution starts from the main method here, immediately what is initialized? Y is initialized. And you see now, when I run this, I got the Y back. Okay? See, watch it. Now, the execution started with main method. The execution started with main method. Once the execution started with main method, immediately guys, the next second the execution started with main method, immediately Y is initialized. Is that clear all of you? The next second the program starts execution, Y is initialized. No need instance creation, nothing. So that's why I'm able to print the value directly now. But what about the X? X is initialized only after creating the instance. So what should I do now? I should create a instance. Come on. Fields. S1 is equals to new fields. And you guys remember when you create an instance, what will happen? Memory is allocated for that instance. Memory is allocated for the instance. What is the name of the instance? S1. S1 is the name of the instance. Now, under this instance, under this particular instance, what happens? Memory is allocated for X. Okay, with what value? 100. Because I given a 100 here, it is initialized with the value 100. So, here, your X is initialized. Your X is initialized. Are you clear? Yes or not? So that is what here the X is initialized with the appropriate value right now. So instance creation is mandatory because until and unless you create an instance, it's not initialized. Clearer or not? Okay, now tell me, if I create another instance now, is X going to be initialized for another time? If I create another instance now, is X going to initialize for another time or not? Yes or no? Yes, why no you're telling Ram? Ram, some of you are telling no. Yesterday I showed you and today you're not just telling no. Brainless fellows. Yesterday only I explained you know, you can create any number of instances. How many instances you create, that many copies will be created. Body present, mind absent. You come to the class, why you are coming to the class also you don't know. If I create one more instance now, one more copy will be created now. Name is not S1 guys. What is the name? S2. One more copy of X. One more copy of X. But understand, you don't have one more copy for Y. You don't have one more copy for Y. Why? Because initialization of Y is not associated with constructor calling. Initialization of Y is not associated with constructor calling. Did you catch my point or not? When the execution starts, static is initialized. When instance created, non-static is initialized. Can I answer this question now? What is the question, you know? In the life cycle of a class, what is the life cycle? Life cycle means the point you start the execution. To end the execution is called as a life cycle. The point you start the execution to end the execution is called as a life cycle. Okay, now answer the question. In the life cycle of a class, how many times static fields are initialized? In the life cycle of a class, how many times static fields are initialized? How many? The answer is one, not one. You should say one and only one time. What is the answer? One and only one time, not one time. One is also okay, but exactly what is it? One and only one time. Non-static fields. Non-static fields. In the life cycle of a class, how many times a non-static fields initialized? Louder. I want the minimum and maximum count. What is the minimum count? What is the maximum? Minimum 0, yeah. Brainless fellow. 0, yeah. Why are you thinking of that much time? No instance creator, not initializer, no. Minimum is 0. Maximum? N. Maximum is N. N instances created N times. Just now I showed you. 2 instances created. 2 times initialized. 10 instances created. 10 times initialized. 0 instances created. 0 times initialized. So what is the minimum count? 0. Maximum count? N. So what is the answer? 0 or N. But for static, what is the answer? 1 and only 1. For static, the answer is 1 and only 1. For non-static, the answer is 0 or N. Is it clear?
Very smoothly. I landed yesterday and I am done with my visa today. Okay. That's so a few hours.
Rate these 2 points. This is what I explained to you right now. Come on. First point. Louder.
15 minutes. Yeah, so it was very effortless. Okay, great. Actually, in the beginning itself you said, but we want to know clearly about you that completely exclusively done by some of them. Kumar Mary is very professional, very sweet, very courteous, and a very big thank you to you for organizing.
Do you understand the first point? As well as each and every new instance you create. What are they telling you? Only after creating an instance, as well as for every instance. Means if I create 100 instances, 100 times it will initialize now. Okay? Second point. Are you clear? Static how many times? 1 and only. Non-static? 0 or N. Non-static is 0 or N. Okay now? Next. Now, all of you tell me this is true or false. Tell me this is true or false. The initialization of a non-static field is associated with a constructor call. Come on, answer. True or false? True or false? True. Yes, it's true. It is true. The initialization of a non-static field is associated with a constructor call. Static field? No. Static fields are not initialized. Static field, execution start only, static field will initialize. Are you clear? Okay? This is true. And true. So the best place to initialize a non-static field is under the constructor. Array, that only now, we learned it now. 2 instances created, 2 copies of X having the same value again, see? Half an hour back, that only now guys, I was explaining you, when you have a chance to create multiple instances, what is the need of creating the multiple instances with the same value? That's what I said to you. See, the same problem repeated again. 100, 100. I want to have different values, guys. If you want to have different values, where should I initialize them? Inside a constructor. So what is the best thing you do? Don't initialize it here. What do you do? Define a constructor. Public fields. Okay now? Index is dot x is equals to x. This dot x is equals to x. Now tell me guys, can I pass different values or not? Here I'm passing 50 and here I'm passing 150. You see now, you don't have the same values now, you have different values. You have the different values. So the value is 50 here. The value is 150. I hope this is clear. Okay now? Can I initialize static field in a constructor? Can we initialize static field in a constructor? We can initialize it, guys. We can initialize static field in a constructor. But we don't do that. Why we don't do? How many copies of static fields are there? One copy or multiple copies? One copy. If you are initializing in a constructor now, 10 instances created, you pass 10 values, it will keep on overriding that value, guys. You created one instance, one value came. Another instance created, it will come and override the value. Suppose 10 instances are created, what will have the last value? Then what is the use of initializing in a constructor when it is overriding every time? I cannot use the value, it will keep on overriding the value. So that is why, even though we can do that, we never do that. Are you clear with my point or not? Static fields are not initialized under constructor. What fields are initialized? Non-static. See, 10 instances, 10 copies. Makes sense. 10 instances, one copy overriding the value. What is the use now? You cannot use that value at all. Before you can make use of that value, it will override of that value for you. When it is overriding of the value for you like this, there is no point of maintaining or creating multiple copies like this. So that is why, initializing it like this. So that is the reason why we never do that. Okay? Read this point, all of you. Come on, read this. The initialization of non-static fields is associated with a constructor call. So the best place to initialize non-static fields is a constructor. And given a note also for you there. Static fields can also be initialized to constructor, but still we never do that because it is a single copy throughout the life cycle of a class, and every new instance will override the old value. I created one instance here, one value came. Before I use, if another instance is created, it will override that value now. You cannot use that value. So that is the reason why it is not the best thing to do that. So it is not the best place to perform this particular action. So what is the best place to do that? What is the, non-static constructors are best only for non-static fields, not for static fields. Okay? So someone is asking about, can we define static constructors? Wait here, I'll answer you, I'll tell you that also. Already I said you know, non-static versus static constructor. Divya, you are asking this question again. I'll say you wait. Okay? So guys, are you clear about fields? I differentiated between the fields. The declaration first, afterwards their initialization, how they initialize, and afterwards their behavior. Multiple copies, single copy, that's what. Are you clear with fields? Guys, basically guys, a class can have 4 different types of fields. Fields in a class are of 4 types. What are the 4? 1. Non-static. Just now you learned. 2. You learned. 3. Constants here. 4. Read-only fields. Constant fields and read-only fields. Hey, you know constants and read-only also, but I did not explain the behavior of them. I already said to you about constants and read-only in the data types classes for you, but I did not explain about behavior of them. Okay? So today I'll explain about the behavior of a constant field and the read-only field. So first let's talk about constant field. What's a constant field? Constant. If a field is explicitly declared by using const keyword, then we call it as constant. If a field is explicitly declared by using const keyword, then we call it as constant. We are going to call this as constant. Okay? And so come to your code, guys. Come to your code, guys. I'm going to declare it. Watch. constant float pipe. Now guys, when I run this, I get error. Why? What is the problem? The problem is, it's a constant only I'm getting the problem. What is the problem? Constant fields cannot be modified once after their declaration. Constant fields cannot be modified once after their declaration. So they must be initialized at the time of declaration only. Did you understand the reason for the error in the code now? Did you understand the reason for the error? What is it telling you? They must be initialized at the time of declaration only. Declaration time only you should initialize it. Otherwise it is an error. Point clear all of you? Is equals to 3.14f. Now no error, see. No error. And I did not print it here, compiled, code compiled, means no error. Okay? Now answer this question, guys. How many instances you created in the program now? 2 instances. 2 instances. Okay, put that in the mind. Now answer me. How many copies of X are there in the memory now? Why are you coming to the class also? I don't know here. 2 copies, la. 2 instances created, 2 copies are there, na. Just now I am explaining point to point and you are just sleeping at 2 instances, 2 copies. How many copies of Y are there? 1. What? Static. Non-static is 0 or n copies. Static is 1 and only 1 copy. But now question is, how many copies of pi will be there? Come on. How many copies of pi will be there? 2 copies are 1 copy. How many? 1 copy. Why 1 copy? Did you declare it static? Then why are you telling 1 copy? Did you declare it static? No, then why are you telling 1 copy? That should be 2 copies now. But now, but 2 copies is waste, no sir. Why? When you cannot modify the value, maintaining 2 copies is waste. Because tomorrow if 10 instances created, 10 copies will be created of. Yes or not? If 10 instances are created, 10 copies are created of. So creating and maintaining 2 copies is waste. See, we'll have 2 confusions now. Confusion number 1 is, it is not declared static. If it is not declared static, 1 copy or 2 copy will be a confusion now. Yes or not? Now coming to 2 copies, there will get a doubt. Why 2 copies when it cannot be modified? So what is the best option? 1 copy. What is the best option? But is it declared static or not declared static? It's not declared static. Yes or not? Yeah guys, it's 1 copy only. But you did not declare it static, no sir? You did not declare it as a static, no? Yes or not? Okay, listen, answer. See, this is the answer for your questions. What's it? The behavior of a constant field will exactly be similar to a static. The behavior of a constant field will exactly be similar to a static field. Exactly be similar to a static field. That is initialized immediately once the execution of class starts, maintaining only a single copy throughout. Are you guys clear with the last point? The behavior of a constant field, the behavior of a constant field will exactly be similar to a static field. That is initialized immediately once the execution of class starts, maintaining only a single copy throughout the life cycle of a class. So, guys, what I'm trying to tell you now, someone's video is on. Who is that? Shiva, your video is on. Yeah, guys, have a look. When the execution of the program starts now, y is initialized in now? Not only yr, pi is also initialized. Are you following me? Not only y, pi is also initialized. Y, pi, both are initialized. What is the value? 3.14. This is pi. So both are single copies only. Then we'll have a doubt now. What is the doubt? Can anyone tell me what is the difference between static and constant now? Can anyone tell me what is the difference between static and constant now? Values can be where? Static. Constant cannot be changed. That's all, yeah. The only difference between constant and static is static fields are modifiable, whereas constant fields cannot be. That's all. Except that there is no difference between constant and static now. Both are same. Both are going to be same. See, I'll put a view. See, before instance creation, can you print X value? Before instance creation, can you print X value? Why I'm scolding you is that only here. I'm asking you now, answer the questions. Unless sit at your home, don't come to the class. You're irritating me a lot. Before creating the instance, can I print the X value? Why you should I scold you again to answer? Can't you answer without scolding you? No. So printing should be done only after doing it. But for why? For why instance required? Not required. For why instance is not required at all. Same way, look at this also, guys. I can print the pi value also without instance creation only. Watch it. That's a clear indication for you. What? Instance is not required for constant. See there. Printed or not. So don't forget. A constant and static both are same. Both are static only. Constant also is static. Constant is also static. Only point I'm telling you. Static is modifiable. Constant is non-modifiable. Clear or not? Okay. So how many types of fields I explained you now? 3. What are 3? Non-static, constant, and static. These two are same. Those two are same. Only difference is non-modifiable and modifiable. So what is non-modifiable? Constant. What is modifiable? Static. Yeah, guys, you can read. Point number 1. If a field is explicitly declared by using constant keyword, we call it as a constant field. And those constant fields cannot be modified once after their initial declaration. So it is a must to initialize them at the time of declaration only, because they do not have a default value. They don't have default values, guys. Constant doesn't have default values. If they have default values, again you can modify the value. That's why constants will not have default values to you. So constant float pi is equals to 3.14. Next. The behavior of a constant field will be similar to the behavior of a static field. That is, initialized immediately once the execution of class starts, maintaining a single copy throughout the life cycle of a class. And the only difference between static and constant fields is static fields can be modified but not constant fields. Except that difference, there is nothing difference we notice between a constant field and a static field. Clearer? Okay. So one more thing is also there. What is that read-only field? So then we'll analyze when to use what type of fields. First, I'm only telling you differences, and I was showing you about the memory allocation, how the memory is going to be allocated for you for each and every of these things. Clear all of you? So let me stop here. I'll tell about the read-only fields tomorrow and also differences between static and non-static methods and differences between static and non-static constructors. We'll discuss tomorrow. Read each and every point and come to the session. Okay, let me stop here. We'll meet tomorrow. You print pi value 2 times or 1 time. Printing and the memory allocation, how they are related, Ahmed? Printing and memory allocation, how they are related? They are not related, na? They are not related with each other. Printing is different and memory allocation is different.
Recording stopped.